Everyone has a bright light inside of them that deserves to be seen by the world. That's why it's time to shine the light on the extraordinary who are accomplishing phenomenal things. This is the Shine Out Loud Show with Lillian Ogbogo.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever in the world you are. Welcome to another episode of the Shine Out Loud Show. Now, this is our first episode for 2019. So if I haven't seen you, spoken to you, Happy New Year. Oh my God, I'm excited because, yeah, you know I'm always excited when I'm doing a show. But today, I am really, really excited because I get to go live. I get to be in person with a woman I have been virtually stalking since the late to early 2000s, Miss Clariscia Gill. This woman is just my girl crush. She's a couturier, a designer of worth and note that Lizzie herself, you know, Lizzie, Queen Lizzie, is keeping a good eye on her. She is one of those women that believe that it's not enough to talk about giving back. You have to take action and do something. I am talking about, if you don't know her, you should. Clariscia Gill of Clariscia Gill
Couturier.
I had to learn that word. I had to go and learn that word, but yes.
It's a bit of a tongueful, but it's a lovely word once you get the hang of it.
Yes,
Couturier.
Yeah. What, you know what, that opens a brand new question. What is a couturier? Because I know of haute couture and I know high-end fashion, but what is a couturier?
Okay, so if I just sort of go right back to the beginning.
Yes.
Oh, hi everybody first. And Happy New Year and Happy New Month.
I know.
Isn't that great already?
Exactly. It's already February.
Yeah. So, couture is basically the word that's used. It's like the female version of men's bespoke tailoring.
Right.
So if you're getting a man's suit made, you'd have a bespoke tailored suit made for your chap or for himself.
Okay.
And the female equivalent of that is couture. So couture means making women's clothing, and it's made to fit the person. It's made in a way that's a lot more involved than sort of if it's mass produced.
Right.
It has a lot of handwork on the stitching.
Right.
It also starts from the very beginning of measuring the client, and so it really is about it being an exact fit for whoever that client is.
Ah, okay. So it's all about almost a start to finish process, which is different from a fashion designer.
Well, it is different in as much as that the fashion designer would, who's working in the ready-to-wear field,
right,
would invariably not really meet the end user, because that fashion designer would design, they would show, you know, their garments would be shown at an exhibition, and they'd be bought by buyers, and then those buyers sell the goods in their shop. Okay. Whereas with couture, that section is cut out. You're going directly to the client first. Ah. So the client comes to you. You basically working directly with your end user, who is the client, whoever's having something made to fit them.
Okay.
Couture as a trade, really the first sort of documented, you know, incidents of couture was in Paris, and that was in the sort of mid-1800s, and it was actually started by an Englishman.
I read that. I was like, ooh, Paris. Yeah. How did that happen?
Well, he lived there, and he set up the first, what's documented as the first couture atelier workroom, and he was like documented as the first person who then invited clients to come and have a look at his collection. He would produce like a little salon, private little fashion show.
Right.
And clients would come there, look at the clothing, and then you'd order it. Again, your client is directly there with you, so yes, that's your end user. And she'd order, irrespective of what size she was, what height she was, she would order from that collection if she liked something, and then get it remade for her, which could take anything, you know, depending on how involved the garment was. It could take a couple of months, or it could take longer.
Right. Okay. So it's a very involved process, and you know, I looked at your just your social media presence and your work, and there is a great passion you have for it. In 2016, you actually let me before I ask that question, I was looking at your work, and you've been designing for a very long time before you started making wedding gowns. How did the pivot from your regular designs to the wedding couture start?
It's literally exactly that same process of working with your client. So individually. So clients would come to me. Gosh, they'd have all sorts of things made. I used to dress a lot of women for corporate wear.
Right.
But it wasn't only corporate wear. Somebody going out for an evening. I might have a client who only came to me once a year. And she was going out for her birthday, so she wanted something made, and she'd save up for that event. And then I'd have corporate women who were coming every season because they needed their clothing. So what started happening, these clients that became, got to know them very well, eventually what started happening, they start to say, one of them said to me, I'm getting married. I'd love you to make my wedding dress. Could you make my wedding dress?
Okay.
My first reaction was, oh no, I don't do wedding dresses. I can't stand those meringue, fluffy, all over the top wedding dresses. And the client responded, neither can I. And she said, that's why I'm asking you. She said, because I've been looking for something and I can't, I'm only seeing that kind of meringue dress, and I don't want those meringue dresses. I want something that's more me, and nobody knows me and my clothing style more than you. So could you do something? So I thought, okay, well, I'll give it a go. And basically, that's how it started.
Okay.
Not only did she have a wedding outfit, she didn't want it long, she didn't want it actually all white or ivory, she wanted a bit of colour in it. I think I remember her dress was ivory and gold. Ooh. So it had a little bit of embroidery, it was midi length,
Okay.
it was slim, it did a little jacket, and it was her, and that's what she wanted. And she just couldn't find it, so she was very happy. And guests at her wedding loved what she wore, and people who liked the same thing then started approaching me, and it grew from there.
Okay. All right. So you talk about your mother being your earliest inspiration, to create, and you talk about fashion being something that wasn't just what you did, it's who you are. So aside from your mother, who else inspired you in your youth?
I think as well as her, there would have been sort of inspiration from lots of people around me, actually. When I think sort of family members, that was the Windrush generation.
Right.
And when they came over, however they came over, they dressed. And so some of my first experiences of seeing women look fly and cool and amazing were family members who had come over from the Caribbean. And they just knew how to dress and put themselves together. From the shoes to the handbags, and then we can't forget the hats.
Of course not.
We can't forget the hats.
And you used to make dolls' dresses. Do you still make those dolls' dresses?
Big dolls. big living dolls. Yeah, that's. I'm sure. Many people can probably have the same experience as me of, trying to dress your dolls and whatever. But for me, it was more than just dressing the dolls. I was actually getting a bit quite involved with the design aspect.
You were designing for your dolls.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can even remember my first attempt at trying to sew when I was 6. I didn't have a clue, but I was just copying my mum, sitting at her sewing machine, and I didn't have a sewing machine, so I made my own sewing machine. I took a shoebox, turned it upside down, and used that, and I used to run a piece of fabric across the shoebox.
Oh.
And my mum was at her machine looking down, trying to keep a straight face. I remember her laughing when she saw me doing that. And then a couple of weeks later, she got me a little one. It was a Singer sewing machine that you, really old it was, and you turn it with a handle.
Oh, wow.
So that was my first sewing machine.
That's so cute. I can just imagine you there with you.
Oh, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I was just running a piece of fabric, just copying her. That's what children do. They copy.
Exactly, and and this is so true. And this is why we'll come on to your academy a little later. we look at your path. You started at literally the foot of your mom. And how important had apprenticeship been to your career?
Invaluable. Because even though I did the fashion school thing, I spent 3 years studying pattern construction, pattern design, and mostly, because I loved to do the actual sewing, I did an intense course in couture and tailoring skills. But it's interesting because all of that, in 3 years, I learned a lot, obviously, but I will still to this day say my first month when I did an apprenticeship, I felt like I learned more in that first month than I did in the 3 years, because it was directly in the trade and in the business.
Okay.
And you had to just really get on with it. But I loved that as well, and I learned so much. So yeah, apprenticeships I think are very, very vital and very important.
And I think it's something that, there's skills that you can learn the aspects from the paper and the books and the teaching, and you can learn to do certain things.
Yeah.
But I think there are things that it's necessary and vital to learn with the actual doing of it.
Oh yeah.
Because I think especially for couture and for dressmaking, there's one thing to read about fabric, but there's another thing to understand what fabric is, how it falls.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually a powerful thing.
Well, even deeper than that, it's even just learning the names of all the different fabrics. So those things will come with time. But it's like someone will say to me, they want a dress made, they want it in silk. And I will say, well, what type of silk? There's about 500 different types of silk.
Wait, there are types of silk?
Oh, yeah.
Apparently there are types of silk.
There's different types of silk. So I think there's a common kind of understanding of silk being something that's shiny, and soft,
flowy, and
like what I'm wearing.
Yes.
This is a silk, and it's a silk crepe satin. It's got a texture to it. I don't know if you can see the texture. It's almost like slightly pimpled.
Yeah, it is.
That little pimple effect is called peau d'orange.
Sorry,
which means
say what that?
It basically okay. That's back to the couture having all the French connections to it. It basically means orange skin of the orange.
Ah, peau d'orange.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you can see it is like an orange skin. Sort of.
I just think it's strokeable.
So that texture is on the silk, but the actual silk is a silk satin. It's a silk crepe satin.
Okay.
It has an underside which is matte, and then the top side is shiny. Some people prefer the matte side. Some people prefer the shiny side. But that's one type of silk. Then you have a silk chiffon. You've got a silk georgette. You've got heavier silks like taffetas.
Yeah, you can
duchesses.
You can see the blank
I'll
expression
keep
in my
going,
face.
I'll keep going.
Because I'm like, I didn't know any of this.
You can even have silk that's mixed with linen.
Really?
You can have silk that's mixed with wool. So there are many different types of silk. So that's the sort of thing that you learn. The longer you're doing anything that you do, the longer you do it, the more you learn about it. It's called experience.
Yes, and this is why I think the apprenticeship side of what you do is really important. You know, and like I said, I'm coming to those questions because I'm just fascinated about your entire backstory, because I want to know how you ended up creating a crystal-lined cape for the greatest Superman that ever lived.
Well, that was that was actually quite funny. That was my first project, my first task I was given when I started doing the apprenticeship.
Right.
Which was at a company that was based in Camden Town called Bermans and Nathans, and they were a film and theatrical costumers. They don't exist anymore.
Okay.
That's how long ago it was. I'm very old. But that job was my first little project as a little junior trainee tailoress arriving at Bermans and Nathans. That film that they were working on was just the beginning of the Superman. I think it was Superman 2, I can't remember. But it was Christopher Reeves who was the star.
Of course.
And the job that they gave me was to basically stitch these giant size, I don't know if anyone knows what press studs are, poppers basically. Some people call them poppers.
Right.
That you pop together to keep your clothes together. They were about that size. They were giant
Wow.
poppers. They had to be covered in fabric. And so I had to cover some in red. And then I had to cover some to also match the colour of his trunks, or
Okay.
his underpants.
Yes.
And these poppers would then be used. The red one went onto the cape, and it would be poppered onto his underpants.
Okay.
So when they were filming the shots, that they had to use this giant wind machine, obviously for the cape to fly. The cape didn't fly and zoom over his head. And that was, for me, just like so exciting. And I can remember the day the people who were acting and who were going to be wearing these clothes would come in for their fittings. And I was like, oh my gosh, please can I be involved in the fitting of the Superman with my fresh studs? And they just looked at me. It didn't happen.
Oh.
I saw him, but I didn't get to pop them on him personally. I tried.
Listen, I'm there with you.
I tried. But it was a great production and a great experience. I made clothes for also his leading lady, which was Margot Kidder.
Yes.
And some of the scenes she was being, she was actually falling off. I think it was the Victoria Falls or the Niagara Falls. It might have been the Victoria Falls, but she was falling off this enormous waterfall, and he has to swoop down and save her.
Yeah, I'm trying to actually remember the scenes as you're talking about.
Well, she wore this a green cotton and linen suit, which I was involved in making.
Oh wow!
And to the point of, this is where couture is so intense. The buttonholes on it were done by hand, and it took me about, goodness knows, 3 days to make all these buttons on this sort of safari jacket that she wore, all literally painstakingly by hand. And when I went to see the film, so excited, literally if you blinked, you missed that scene where she went over the waterfall, let alone see the buttonholes. I spent 3 days making it. I was mortified.
You know what? I'm actually going to go back and
have a look
and watch the movie again.
Well, if you see it, let me know.
And then I'm going to see if I can freeze frame, because I will watch it on my laptop and capture that moment, because that's actually,
it was hilarious.
Legendary work there.
Well, it was what it was, but it was just exciting, and it was just so fascinating to learn so many things. I mean, one of the things I learned, that same suit that I made for her, I had to make. Ended up about 4 or 5 of those suits.
Okay.
So 2 of them were for her, and then the rest were for the stunt women.
Okay.
Because the scenes of her falling over the fall, some of it was filmed by stunt women, so they had to have the same clothing as she did. So it was quite interesting. So they would be different sizes, because some of the stunt women were not the same size as her.
Okay.
So you'd make all these duplicate outfits. But it was fascinating to see just how much work went into production of this movie. And I was thinking what they must have paid for that hand buttonholes and so forth. And then it's just thrown over the waterfall, and that's the end of that. Wow. So you learned a lot.
Exactly. So you've done that, and also and that's just one of the things you did when you were starting your career. Yeah. What came next in your fashion journey?
What came next was, after my stint learning, and I stayed there for about 2 years. I saw many people come and go while I was there, because they just couldn't take it. They didn't like that it was so intense, which didn't bother me at all, because I was learning. But also, as an apprentice, you don't get paid very much. But again, I felt, well, I'm learning, so I stayed longer and managed to get myself a pay rise, actually, because myself and another friend from my college who were there, our work was kind of a bit ahead of the other trainees who came.
Right.
So we were producing a lot of top quality work compared to the other trainees. So we went on strike and said we want to be paid more.
You did it!
Oh yeah. And we got it. We got it.
You gotta ask for what you want.
We got it, and we got it, and we were told to keep it quiet, and not let the others know. So we were happy, so we stayed. I learned about people power there.
Exactly.
About people power.
You're like, I got what you want.
If you don't speak, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Exactly.
So
this is
speak up.
This is the lesson. Don't
Speak
ask,
up.
don't get,
Yeah.
and speak up.
Speak up.
You know,
Yeah. So that after working there, I kind of pretty much knew I wanted to at some stage work for myself.
Right.
So I stayed there as long as I could to get the experience, and then started planning what I was going to do next, which was to take another job, which I did, which was the complete opposite. My pay rise by literally, it went up by 3 times,
Okay.
but the work was so boring, I was traumatized. And that job was at John Lewis. At that time, they had what was called a fashion workroom.
Right.
And the fashion workroom basically was where if somebody bought something in the store, and it needed altering, and it needed to be fixed, we would get the job and we would fix it and alter it for them. So it was kind of, for me, total opposite of what I've been doing for 2 years. But I had to just buckle down and stay with that because it was giving me the opportunity to save money to buy my first sewing machine.
Okay. All right. So, when we look at couture, when we think of couture and we think it's for the few, not for the many. We think it's, it's not for us, basically. Is this still the case?
No, it's not at all. And I will say no, because this is where the confusion, I think, sometimes comes between haute couture and couture.
Yes.
Haute couture, yes, that's the case for haute couture because it is very, very involved. The fabrics are immensely intricate. Sometimes there's beadings and so forth on the fabric that can take forever, so it's going to be costly.
Yes.
But that is haute couture. Couture is, just several stages up from your local dressmaker.
Okay.
Or everybody knows somebody in the family who makes clothes, who does a bit of sewing. That's the beginnings of couture.
All right.
So, it's the couture aspect of when you're sort of doing it the way that I've done it and trained. Yes, obviously you've gone deeper into it,
Of course.
but it's still coming from that same source, and it's not the same prices as haute couture.
Okay. And just sticking to haute couture for a moment, do you think that the industry that it is could be more open for diversity, or is it a case that creators and designers of color should start looking to create a standard for themselves?
Well, that's already happening. And there's hotbeds all over Africa of designers. Just because you don't hear about them doesn't mean they're not there. They're doing masses. There are Nigeria, Ghana, Rwanda, just a handful that you can start looking at. Because we don't hear about them. So because we don't hear about them doesn't mean that they're not there doing it.
Exactly.
We're already seeing some of the sort of throwback of it coming back at us when you have designers like Stella McCartney using the Ankara prints in her collection. She's not the only one doing it, but there are others doing it, so they're watching and they see what's going on out there. So no, I would say we don't have to always fit into somebody else's circle to be recognized.
And that's true, and I actually agree because I think in the last 2 seasons I've interviewed some amazing African-based designers who are changing fashion.
Yes.
And I think that instead of trying to get a seat at their table, I think we should continue to focus on building our table and high-end fashion for us. And I think that is definitely something that we want to see more of.
Well, it's happening. As I say, it's happening. In Victoria Island in Nigeria, there's some of the fashion shows happening there are attracting the British designers now going there.
Yeah.
So there's lots happening that you just don't hear about it.
This is true. So here's my question. As a woman of color who is a couturier, who had a atelier, I think that's the right phrase?
That's correct, yeah.
In Mayfair, what has been your biggest challenge in the industry?
Now, I can't really say that I have a biggest challenge because I don't look at challenges as something that you should shy away from or monitor them in a point to say what's the biggest one. Otherwise, why am I going to spend my energy focusing on something that's seen as negative?
Right.
It's things happen, and you plan, you build, you learn. Things that happen that don't necessarily always go the way you plan. There's a massive lesson there to learn and to fix or change something. Sometimes things have to happen that way in order for you to learn. So for me, I don't really have a problem with challenges. I say bring them on.
Okay.
I challenge myself as a designer. I learned very early on not to always copy or follow what other people are doing, because that's not me. But it's very important that if you're going to challenge, actually such an interesting word, if you're going to challenge, challenge yourself.
Exactly.
Challenge your limits. Don't look at what everyone else is doing. Do you, and challenge yourself.
Okay.
Competition should come from you first. Be your own competition.
All right, I like that.
Be your own competition. Be your own competition, and don't be negative about yourself. Fine-tune yourself. Fine-tune and spend your time on your craft, whatever that may be, whether it's fashion or not. Whatever you're doing, fine-tune it, hone it, challenge it, learn as much as you can about it. Keep doing it, because the more you do it, the better you get. Don't look at what other people are doing, because they're not doing what you're doing.
Okay. And that's actually very important. So, for you, it's never been an outside challenge. It's always about you challenging the best in yourself.
It is, yeah. And then if something happens then I just find a way around it.
Okay.
When I found the studio in Mayfair, initially I didn't get it when I put the bid in for it, and I was really upset about it initially. But that passed fleetingly, because I kind of almost programmed myself to not live in negativity. I've got it now. So I kind of remember thinking to myself, well, why are you so upset about this? If it's not for you, it's not for you. And I remember that day saying, you know what, I like that place so much. If somebody else gets it, I'm really happy for them, and I wish them to have the joy that I would have had in it. And I bless it with love, and I left it. And then 3 months later, I got a call back from the estate agents who were dealing with the property to say that the deal had fallen through with other people, and the first person they wanted to offer it to was me.
Oh, wow.
So sometimes you have to just learn to put things aside, and things happen, and sometimes it happens for a reason.
Exactly. But you got it, and
I got it, and I was there for 18 years.
And that's amazing. And you've moved currently to Brixton at the moment?
Yeah.
And was there a conscious reason why you wanted to move it back to Brixton?
Yeah, because there's quite a few things that I want to do, and I got to a stage where literally I just couldn't do everything. I have a publishing company that I want to write some books, and I've had that for 9 years, and I haven't written one book because I've just been too busy. I've got 100 ISBNs sitting there waiting to be used.
Okay.
Some of the books I want to write are also about my journey, but also about the experience to help others who are coming up in fashion. So there's other things I want to do. I want to go and sort of develop further into having an online presence, but it will be like a sort of what I call ready to couture.
Ready to couture. I like this.
Which is sort of in between ready to wear and couture. That's my feeling of it. I don't feel I need to categorize myself the way everybody else does. I categorize myself the way that it works for me and my clients.
Okay.
So there are certain outfits that I can produce suitable for online, which are not too labor intensive, but there are some things I won't compromise, like the quality of the fabric.
Okay.
So that way I can marry the two together, so the outfits are not too expensive, but also the design-wise of them, they're things that can be able to be fit most people without having to be fitted on them, because that couture just can't be done that way.
Okay.
Couture cannot be sold online because you cannot measure the client.
Yes, online.
Yeah, it's physically impossible. So this is why I call it ready to couture.
Okay, I like this. And, I'm really fascinated about what you do, and for most people that don't know, you're a mentor, you're a teacher, and you're very much about inspiring the next generation. So, what has driven your passion behind giving back to not just your community, but to the next generation?
Oh, that's easy. Because when I knew, because I knew so early what I wanted to do, it kind of almost made it a little bit difficult. Because then I found the issue was trying to let other people understand that I knew what I wanted to do. And there were some who just, because they didn't know the trade, I think it's frightened some people, and they felt it was just a bit too much for me, too involved, almost feeling it was sort of not something for us.
Exactly.
So once I'd convinced people that actually this is what I want to do, because I was just confused. Well, this is what I want to do. Why am I getting this feedback?
Well, they're like, yeah, but you're 10. You don't know yet.
Literally, that was kind of it.
You need a backup plan.
Yeah. So it's funny because along the way things happened. I think when your mindset is so focused and you're not for any reason other than you just know what you want to do, the universe provides things to continue along that journey. So from as far back as being at school, I had an art teacher and a needlework teacher who both were really instrumental in picking up that I had this creative side to me, and they really helped. They really helped me immensely. So I feel that once I knew what I wanted to do, there was nobody around me that I knew of or anybody else seemed to know of who was in fashion then, who I could talk to or I could get to mentor me.
Right.
So that's my reason for kind of feeling so strong about it, is that I want to be that person for other people.
I think that's actually powerful, because that's what's driven you to start the Atelier Academy, which is your next baby. So tell us about the Atelier Academy. It's
kind of not, how can I describe it? It's not something that's just happened. As long as I've been doing this, and as long as I've had my first studio, which was back in 1981, there's always been somebody who's got a sister, a cousin, a niece, a daughter, who's a little bit interested in fashion.
Right.
So that person would ask me, quite a bit about it. Oh, could that person come and spend a bit of time with you? So wherever possible, I'd have somebody come and just shadow me, mentor them, so that they could get a bit of a feel about the trade. So it's been happening as long as I've been doing it. I remember once when I had that first studio, which was in Camberwell Green, actually, by the way.
Okay.
It was in Camberwell Green. I had a write-up in one of the local newspapers at the time. I think it was the South London Press. And it was amazing, the response to that article, the amount of people. Then I started getting these letters arriving at the studio from people who had read the article. And one was from a lady who said, could she bring her daughter? Her daughter is just really fascinated about the whole thing. I said, yeah, give me a call, and we arranged stuff. And she called. And when I spoke to this lady, she said, oh, she's going to bring her down. She said, oh, but by the way, she said, my daughter is deaf. And I said, well, yeah. I said, she's still, bring her along.
Okay.
And so she came, this girl, and I can still to this day see that girl's face. She was just so excited and fascinated just to be in a studio. She wanted to go into fashion. So that for me is another reason I do it, because I never had anybody that I could be like that with and feel that kind of excitement about going into fashion.
That's powerful. I'm sorry, that's actually amazing. And, and rightly so, you've been doing this for over 30 years. You've been training and mentoring for over 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, alongside running the business,
Yes.
It's not the main thing. It's something that I do when I have time, because anybody running a business will know that you can't always have that time. But I found a way. I found a little balance of being able to do it and give most of them at least a little bit of an insight if it fitted in, and I would do it that way. And so it basically grew from that into being the academy, and where it grew to the point of being international. I even had a setup with a school in France who would send their students to me.
When I read that, I was actually quite fascinated, because we think Paris is the center of fashion for the entire world, and they're sending their students to you. That actually blew my mind.
Well, even that came about in a strange way as well, because that's why I say sometimes in life you have to just be prepared for how things go along and to be able to seize the opportunity to roll with it. Mm-hmm. What happened in that incident was a young student at this school, which was in Provence. She had to do her work experience, which they did quite an intense 3 months work experience.
Okay.
And the head teacher had arranged for her to go, or she had to go to a couturier in Paris.
Right.
She went and she hated it. She felt she wasn't learning much at all. They had her, basically they weren't really training her. They just had her there as like an internee, doing things
like coffee and all this, so forth. And she hated it so much that she didn't complete the term. And the head teacher said, well, you've got to find somewhere to go. And she said, oh, she's going to find somewhere. She looked and she found me online and found other people, but she said, there's something about my website, the way I spoke about couture. She said, that's somebody who she felt is going to give her the experience and training that she needs. So she went back to her tutor, the head teacher, and said, look, this is the place I want to go. And she said, no, you can't go there, it's in London. And she said, well, that's where I want to go. And he was insistent that she can't go, because nobody from the school had ever done that. Nobody from our school has ever done a work placement abroad. Right.
There must be somewhere in the whole of France that you can go. But this girl was so insistent, it was quite hilarious. She was just insistent that I want to go there. So, as it so happens, she had one of her parents were separated, and one of them lived in London.
Okay.
So the tutor said, look, my dad lives in London, I can stay with my dad. So the tutor said, well, basically, why don't you arrange to go and see this lady, this couturier? I'll write and explain that you want to come. Go and see her, and it was October and it was their half term, so she came over to London for the half term. The work placement was going to be for the following March.
Okay.
But in the October, she came and visited. And straight away, there was no issue, because I could see that she was passionate about fashion. And at the time, I had 2 other youngsters working with me. One of them was one of my nephews. And they all got on, so that the whole synergy was right.
Okay.
And I said, yes, I'm happy to have her. And she came and worked with me for 3 months. She stayed with us for 3 months. And at the end of the 3 months, the school had a sort of a competition for the students. She was in the second year. They have a competition and they have to make something. And one of the things that she'd seen that I did that she liked was another way that I try not to compromise couture, but to make it be an investment in your wardrobe, is I kind of have this thing about making items as usable as possible. Like I do dresses that are reversible.
Okay.
I'll do a dress that you can maybe take apart and do different things with it. And she just thought that was fascinating. She liked that. So for this competition that she went back to France to do, she decided she was going to do that. And we did a cocktail dress that was sort of long, formal dress. But the lower half of the cocktail dress, you could undo it, take it off, and it had like a fake fur section, which was the lower skirt of the dress. You took that off, and it became a shawl.
I like that. For people like me, that's always cold. That sounds handy.
It's a little shawl. It's a little cape, and it worked. So this young lady, who interestingly, she had a little bit of dyspraxia.
Okay.
I think there was a slight touch of autism as well, but again, it doesn't bother me. I'm just interested in if you've got common sense, you can take instruction, and you're enthusiastic, and she met that criteria. And she told me that in her class teacher, not the head teacher, the class teacher had called her cack-handed, maladroit, would really put her down.
That just sounds wrong.
And so I was just so mad. And I thought, no. I said, well, when you go back to France, tell the teacher from me that you're not cack-handed. You're actually very special and gifted. So she went back after her 3-month stint at CG Couture. They had this competition, which is sponsored by the local business people in the area.
Okay.
And she won the competition.
I'm sorry.
That's exactly how I felt. Then she told me that the tutor, the one who had been a bit weird with her, actually asked her, came backstage and scrutinised the garment and said to her, "Are you sure you made this yourself?" I nearly got a plane ticket and flew over to Paris just to have a little word with this woman.
Very up close and personal words.
Yeah. Some colourful words.
Like my good fellow.
But she then went on from the school. It really was a school, sort of, but a fashion kind of junior fashion school. She went on from there to get in a placement at one of the top fashion academies in Italy.
Okay.
And is now finished studying there, and I believe she's actually back in London this year. So I'll probably be hooking up with her to see how she got on.
Okay. All right. That is amazing, because I just couldn't understand the fact that Paris was sending students to you.
Yeah, it was so funny. But then so now after the success of that student, the tutor was then like on the phone to me pretty quick, and so set up a bit more of a firmer structure.
Right.
And so as a result, several other students were sent. But as long as it fitted in with my work schedule, I would never have more than 2 students at a time, because it's just not possible to give them the attention that they need and to have your time to run the business. So yes, I saw a few other students, and then also it started coming from other areas. There was another company that just did work placements.
Okay.
And they found me online again. So again, it's important that your online presence is good.
Woman, your online presence is not good. Your online presence is just spectacular. You are everywhere. No, seriously. You have a way of approaching your online, your social media presence that even for me, I'm like, I need to see what you're up to. Because you do it so elegantly, I guess, is with everything you do. It's honest and authentic. You have loving and loyal followers, because I've seen all the responses to the posts coming up about the show. So you do it quite well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but that's part of the philosophy I have. Whatever you're doing, do it well or don't do it.
This is true.
If you can't give it the attention it should have, why are you doing it? Don't do it.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is so true. So, I am... there's just so much on there. But you know what? I'll ask you this. As a couturier, please tell me, why is it so hard to get a pair of trousers that actually fits?
Oh, right.
Please,
Don't get me started on that one. Right. Okay. Let me tell you why. I'll tell you exactly why. I can remember doing a little in-house report one year, and I just felt like I seem to be making a hell of a lot of trousers, and so I did a report. I got some of the youngsters that were working with me at the time. That's the sort of thing it's good for them to get to do as well. So I got them to do a little report and do a list of all the items that I'd made over a given period of time.
Okay.
And trousers, without any doubt, just knocked everything out of the ballpark.
Right.
There was double the amount of trousers than anything else I'd made. And my reason for it is because the shape of a body is so unique in that particular area of the body. You can have, for instance, let me give you an example, 2 people that measure exactly the same around the diameter of their hip.
Yes.
the same measurement would be 42 inches for that same two people.
Right.
But their body for that 42 inches is shaped totally differently. One of them will have the 42 inches at the side of her hips. One of them, side of her hips is not that big, but from behind, hey, hello,
There's a little something.
we've got a Coca-Cola bottle shape going on. So even though the measurements are the same, the fit is the trousers for her is not going to fit her. The trousers for her is not going to fit her. So as a result of me doing my detective work on it, I then, again, because I know my clients, because you're seeing them individually,
Yeah.
I had basically three different sets of patterns for trousers. I had a different cut, a different back, a different block.
Okay.
And so I would use those blocks for clients, and so that they knew when they came there to get their trousers would fit them. So if there's one product that clients would always reorder, trousers.
I have to come to you.
You need to come.
I have to come to you because I cannot, for the life of me, I don't care what store I go to. I'm not going to name and shame you people, but it's like it makes you feel so depressed.
No,
you go in, you buy clothes, and you're just like,
yeah, but that's the beauty of couture. You don't feel depressed. It's just like, wow, these trousers fit me. I mean, it even went to the point where I started getting requests for people, say, complaining again about not being able to buy trousers. Jeans.
Yep.
People wanted me to make them jeans, so I would do couture jeans. Yes, of course it's going to cost a bit, but people were happy to have it because it fits them and it lasts long. And so I had
to go and get myself measured for jeans recently.
Well, you should have to, because, like I say, one template for one person is not going to fit a different body. It's not going to happen.
Yes.
And my jeans, I'd have different kind of ways of identifying my jeans. I had my A jeans.
Okay.
My AB jeans.
Okay.
And then I had my BB jeans.
What's a BB jeans?
The black butt jeans.
You're bad.
And then the Aryan butt jeans.
So, you want to come and get your jeans from Miss Clariscia Gill here because it will fit.
And I loved
And you keep a straight face too. I'm the one looking like I'm creating all the trouble.
I'm telling you the truth. That's how it goes. That's what it was.
So, okay. Yeah. Okay.
BB.
Yes. BB jeans are
BB
are
jeans.
needed. They're definitely needed.
BB jeans. And the jeans is all about the jeans. GENES.
Let's move on. How would you describe your style?
Oh, wow. I do get asked that often, but I kind of do find it difficult to describe my style.
Right.
But other people can describe my style. So that fascinates me a bit, because I almost don't know what my style is.
Ah. So does it change with the seasons?
No, it's really down to kind of what I'm feeling creatively. But even with that in mind, people still can identify my style. So I'm quite interested in that. You'd have to ask my clients.
Okay.
Ask my clients.
I will have to poll a couple of your clients, and after I get my jeans and trousers made,
because
I'll be able to answer that too.
Because also, the thing is, with working with clients individually, they've all got different personalities and styles. So my job is almost like a fashion psychologist. You've got to get behind the client's thinking as well in order to be able to make what's right for them. And that's about not just designing.
That's creative.
That's about being creative, but being creative in a way that's accommodating of your client.
Right.
Not just about you and what I want to put them in. And apparently I'm very good at that. I can do that within 10 minutes of meeting somebody, is kind of assess their clothing personality. But again, it's like everything else. The more you do something, the easier it becomes.
Exactly.
You know?
I'm not going to ask you to do my style now, because nobody needs to know this. We will, it's what I like about what you do and the work that you've done is it's practical. It's beautiful. There's a retro chic to it, but there's a classicness about when you look at your work. There's some things that I've seen your work from the Gele tea parties that you've been involved in. Right. And I'm looking at them, wow. And that's the only thing I can say.
Okay, well, that's an interesting one because my challenge to myself for that was to do things with the Ankara fabrics that were a bit different to what you normally see done with them. And quite often, you don't have to see it all at once.
Yes.
And it was interesting because when I did the Gele events, quite often the African ladies would come to me and say, "I like what you did there. It's just so subtle. It's just so nice." And they liked the change, so it was quite interesting. And why can't you wear a Gele headdress with a pair of BB jeans? There's a picture that you probably saw with a beautiful Gele with butterflies on. The client is wearing a pair of high-waisted BB jeans.
Yes. And it looks
you know.
Yeah. So we have come to that point in the show. I have so much more to ask you. In fact, I think what I may do is
let's just do another one.
Is save them for a round two. I think people, that is what we're going to do.
Just do another one.
We're going to do a round two, and we're going to have a secondary show. And yes, I think that's what we're going to do.
I think that's an excellent idea.
Yes, I agree. So I'm going to ask you, what is we've come to that point where we talk about our so loud moment for the week. Yes, what is your so loud moment for the week?
So loud?
Yes, so...
What is a so loud moment?
So when we talk about our so loud moment, what we talk about is it's either us celebrating a personal thing that basically that has touched us, that we're proud of. It could even be celebrating us. It could be celebrating, one of your mentees who are doing so well. It can be, for me, I remember the first so loud moment I did was to the movies Hidden Figures. Because I remember how it took the box office and shook it down.
Wow.
And all the people, they're like, oh yeah, a whole movie with just black women wouldn't work. And they're like, hold my wine. Let me show you something. I did it when Black Panther came out because it was like black people as superheroes. the Black Panther crew were like, hold my wine. I got something to show you. So those are my so loud moments. You have to be incredibly proud. Another so loud moment for me was just celebrating that we got to 2 years old. That's a so loud moment for me. So what is your so loud moment of the week?
Of the week?
The week, the month, the year, last year.
How long have you got?
We got time.
I've got so many, honestly. Honestly, I've got so many. From mentees that have gone on to do fantastic things. There's one mentee at the moment springs to mind, who I can't remember it being this long, but she said I've been mentoring her since she was 14.
Oh wow!
I was introduced to her father at. Funny enough, I remember when it was. It was the inauguration of Obama.
2008.
Which is another so loud moment.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's why I'm asking you, how long have you got there? Be careful what you ask me. So, I'm at that event. There was a nice private showing somewhere down on near the House of the Parliament. I went to that event, and somebody heard me being introduced to somebody as a fashion designer, and this gentleman came up and said, "Oh, I heard you were a fashion designer. Could I have a word with you? I've got a daughter who's driving us mad. She's just fashion mad. She loves fashion. Could she come and meet you?" And that was the beginning of that. And that young lady went on to study fashion, and now she's in her mid 20s.
Oh wow!
And has her own fashion business.
Okay.
And she went into the pattern cutting side of things, and she's doing extremely well, very, very well. And that's one of the things I also tell my mentees, if it works, if it can work for them, is no matter what you're doing, even if you're going to be working full time, still keep your own little thing going. Set yourself up with a limited company. And she did exactly everything to the T.
Wow.
Now has a very highly successful operation doing pattern grading. She's called the Pattern Studio.
Oh, okay.
Camille.
Camille at the pattern studio.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my life is peppered with stories like that. And all sorts of things. I can echo your response to the Black Panther. I felt the same. I even made myself an outfit to go to the Black Panther.
I know, I saw it.
I was in the movie as far as I was concerned.
I saw it. I was like, damn.
I was.
And I think, you know what, since we are here collectively, I think we should do one collective soul out moment.
Okay.
And I think that our collective soul out moment should be a huge outpouring of love to Dawn Carter of Carter Mills for
I couldn't agree more.
Exactly, for allowing us to use her fantastic space
Yes.
as an independent realtor
Yep.
in Brixton.
That's estate agent to those of us in London.
Okay, sorry, my bad. Independent estate agent in Brixton that is privately owned by an incredible black woman. I think we need to do that collective soul out.
Definitely,
for her.
and pass it on.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, so I think that deserves the big, huge round of applause that we're going to send out here.
Yeah.
And
I like that one. Yeah.
yes, I think that's a good one.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thanks, Dawn. So yes, and done. We've got our huge round of applause going out. No. I she was about to run away. Oh no.
No.
We are not done yet.
Okay.
I was going to say last question, but I'll be lying if I did. How did you end up meeting Her Royal Majesty, Lizzie?
I was very kindly put forward as a guest of the Jamaican High Commissioner at the time, Alun, to be one of the guests at a Commonwealth reception at Buckingham Palace, and I was put forward based on what I do. So yeah, I had a little bit to eat and drink with Her Royal Majesty, and it was a fantastic opportunity,
Oh, wow.
a great event. And met some fantastic people from all over the Commonwealth there. Many of them are still friends to this day.
That must have been an interesting experience.
Yes, it was.
And I bet one was wondering how one can get hold of one of your outfits.
Well, maybe she did.
But one will never tell.
Actually, it's interesting because at that event, I wore a dress that I designed, and the inspiration for that dress, funny enough, came from Michelle Obama.
Okay.
When she came to be First Lady, I wrote an article about her and the change of shape that was going to be in the White House.
Oh, I love how discreet you are and your elegant choice of words.
I'll have to send you that article.
Please do.
So, and it was based on things again that I can remember having clients come to me who had a different shape to people they worked with, and one client in particular, she wanted a suit made to go to an award ceremony, and she was insistent that the jacket covers her behind. And I was like, why are you covering yourself? Oh no, she had this thing about not showing herself. I said, I think you're soaking in things, you're hearing things. You know, one of the quotes that we always hear, does my bum look big in this? Does my bum look too big? And we were absorbing it. I said, no, sorry, your jacket doesn't need to be that long. Please trust me. And so I did her the crop jacket, and she was also petite.
Right.
So it was a better shape for her. She did this lovely little petite ivory suit. Well, I can tell you, when she came back to see me after this award, she had a list of compliments.
Oh, wow. List.
Yeah.
Oh.
The best one was one that had me in stitches. She said she was walking down the hallway at this event, and then some guy came up to her and said, "Oh, excuse me, but do you have a form?" And she said, "Excuse me." He said, a form. He said, I want to sign it. He said, I need to sponsor that walk.
Oh, wow. cheesy, but we'll take it. Okay, so for people that don't know, how can don't know you and haven't discovered your work, how can they connect with you?
You can connect with me on my Instagram, which is, if you're into that, you can connect with me on Instagram, which is Clariscia @Clariscia_CG. Facebook, I have a Facebook page for my couture, Clariscia Gill Couture. There's also a Facebook page for the bridal, Clariscia Gill Bridal, and also a Facebook page for the Academy, called Atelier International Academy. And you probably know what more I'm on than I do.
Well, your website, don't forget to give them your website.
Oh, of course, my website. I view my website as really more just a shop window. So, because I work with so many different clients, different body shapes, it's impossible to have everything I do on there. So it just gives people really a landing page to contact me. I mean, I just had somebody email me yesterday who found me online from the website, who's getting married in May.
Okay.
And on the front of my website is a picture of a dress that's reversible. One of the things that I was talking about earlier. And she wants a wedding dress that's reversible, and she doesn't want white or ivory. That's my ideal client. Somebody who's happy with who they are, doesn't feel they have to follow the trend.
And don't want to look like Tinkerbell coming down the aisle.
No! And she just loved the reversible dress. If I can have a reversible dress that reverses from a wedding dress into a cocktail dress. So there's a lovely challenge.
You know what? That actually sounds sensible, because why spend so much money on a dress that you wear for a few hours?
Well.
And never wear again.
So that's, so you can contact me directly from the website. She didn't even call me. I have a contact list, contact page. There's a link that you can just contact me directly.
Okay. And my last question. As a couturier, if you had to wear one item from your creations for a year, what would it be?
Let me think. Gosh. If I had to wear one outfit, I'm trying to think of what's my go-to. You see, the problem with me, I'm a mood dresser.
Yes.
So I dress according to how I feel at that time. So it would actually depend on what time it was.
You only have one outfit.
No, I could never be in that mood for a year. You see, I'm sorry, I can't answer you. I could not stay in one mood for the whole year. No, it's not happening.
You're like, nothing happened.
Unless you put me in a coat. I love coats.
Okay, so you get one coat.
I'd wear a coat over whatever I was wearing to suit that mood. How's that?
That's not an answer, but I'll take it. All right, I cannot thank you enough for being on the show.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you.
We just need to plan the next time we are doing this and get the show locked down, because I have so much more to find out about you.
Well, we've got time.
Yeah. All right, folks, it's a wrap. I just want to say thank you to my incredible guest. If you want to reach out to her and find out more, drop by the Shine Out Loud show page, and I'll have all her links on there. You can find her on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and
LinkedIn, which is probably the one I use the least, and Twitter.
And LinkedIn and Twitter. So you can find her on all the social medias, and all her links will be on our page. If you have some more questions for her, drop us a message at our Instagram, DM us, or send us a Twitter message, and I will pass it on to her. It has been my distinctive pleasure to interview the couturier, Clariscia Gill. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You've been listening to The Shine Out Loud Show. If you want to connect with us or let us know what you thought of today's show, be sure to follow us on Twitter @Shine Out Show.